They say desperation can make a good person agree to impossible things. But sometimes, destiny disguises itself as desperation. On the day Linda Okafor signed a marriage contract with a complete stranger, she believed she was selling 30 days of her life. She had no idea she had just stepped into a war that had been waiting for her long before she was born. Rain poured relentlessly over the city, blurring the headlights of cars crawling through the evening traffic. Inside the luxurious Grand Meridian Hotel, guests hurried through the revolving doors while staff rushed from one task to another. Linda Okafor stood behind the reception desk, forcing herself to smile despite the exhaustion weighing on her shoulders. "Good evening, sir," she greeted another guest warmly. "Your room is ready." The man barely looked at her. He collected his key card and walked away without a word. Linda sighed quietly. One day, she whispered to herself, "I'll own a place like this." Her best friend and fellow receptionist, Grace, overheard her and laughed. "You've been saying that for 2 years. And one day I'll stop saying it. Because it'll be true." Grace smiled. "I believe you." Linda returned the smile, but deep inside, hope was becoming harder to hold on to. 3 months earlier, her father had passed away after a long battle with kidney disease. The hospital bills had swallowed every naira the family had. Now the only person she had left was her grandmother. And even grandma's health was beginning to fail. Every month came with new prescriptions. Every week came with another bill. Every day felt like another fight she wasn't sure she could win. Her phone vibrated. "Grandma." Linda answered immediately. "Grandma, how are you feeling?" "My child." The old woman's voice sounded weaker than usual. "I'm fine." Linda knew she wasn't. "You've eaten?" "A little." "You took your medicine?" There was silence. Linda closed her eyes. "You didn't." "I wanted to wait until you came home." "Grandma. I don't like taking them alone." Linda fought back tears. "I'll be home soon. I made your favorite soup. You should be resting." "I rest too much already." Linda smiled despite herself. "I love you. I love you more." The call ended. Grace looked over. "Everything okay?" Linda nodded. "It has to be." At exactly 8:45 p.m., the hotel manager approached the reception. "Linda." "Yes, sir?" "Room 2901 requested fresh towels." "I'll take them." Grace suddenly grabbed her wrist. "Wait." Linda frowned. "What?" Grace lowered her voice. "Do you know who's staying there?" Linda shook her head. "No." Grace looked around before whispering. "Xavier Adeyemi." Linda blinked. "The billionaire. The one and only." Even people who knew nothing about business knew that name. CEO of Adeyemi Global Holdings. One of Africa's youngest billionaires. Owner of banks. Construction companies. Hotels. Airlines. Technology firms. Some admired him. Others feared him. Newspapers called him the Ice King. Not because he was cruel. Because nobody had ever seen him smile. "They say he fired an executive during a board meeting without raising his voice," Grace whispered. "They say his silence is scarier than shouting." Linda chuckled nervously. "I'm just delivering towels." "That's exactly why I'm warning you." She leaned closer. "Don't stare. Don't ask questions. Don't touch anything. And whatever happens, leave quickly." Linda laughed. "You make him sound like a monster." Grace didn't laugh back. "I'm serious." Linda knocked softly. "Housekeeping." No answer. She knocked again. "Housekeeping." The door slowly opened. The suite was almost completely dark. Only the city lights streamed through the enormous windows. She stepped inside carefully. "Sir." No response. The room was silent except for the sound of rain against the glass. She placed the folded towels neatly on a table. "I'll be leaving now." A deep voice interrupted her. "Who told you to leave?" Linda froze. Slowly she turned. A man stood near the window. Tall. Perfectly tailored black suit. One hand inside his pocket. The city lights reflected behind him, making it impossible to see his face clearly. "I'm sorry, sir." "You didn't answer." "So I assumed." "I dislike assumptions." His voice wasn't loud. Yet it carried enough authority to silence the room. "I'm sorry." He finally stepped forward. Now she saw him clearly. Sharp jawline. Calm eyes. Expression impossible to read. He looked exactly like the photographs online. Only colder. He looked at her name tag. Linda. Yes, sir. How long have you worked here? Almost 2 years. You've never delivered towels to this suite before. No. So why tonight? She hesitated. The supervisor assigned me. He studied her face for several seconds. Long enough to make her uncomfortable. You seem nervous. I've heard stories. What stories? Linda regretted answering honestly. That you're difficult. For a brief second, she thought she saw the corner of his mouth move. Not a smile. Almost a smile. Interesting. His phone rang. He ignored it. It rang again. He rejected the call without looking. Then another. He turned the phone upside down on the table. Linda couldn't help noticing. Everything okay, sir? He looked at her. You ask a lot of questions. I'm sorry. You apologize even more. I'll leave now. As she turned toward the door, he spoke again. Wait. She stopped. He walked to a cabinet, poured himself a glass of water, then asked quietly, Do you believe everyone has a price? Linda frowned. I don't understand. Everyone wants something. Money. Power. Status. He took a sip. The only difference is the amount. She shook her head. I don't believe that. So you've never wanted something badly enough to compromise? Images flashed through her mind. Her father's hospital bed. Unpaid bills. Her grandmother hiding her pain. The overdue rent notice folded inside her handbag. She swallowed. I don't know. I think you do. Just then, her phone rang again. She quickly apologized. I'm sorry. Answer it. It's okay. I said answer it. She looked at the screen. Unknown number. Hello? A calm male voice spoke. Am I speaking with Miss Linda Okafor? Yes. This is Riverside Medical Center. Linda's heart skipped. Your grandmother collapsed about 20 minutes ago. Everything around her seemed to stop. What? She's stable for now. But she needs immediate treatment. We'll require a deposit before we proceed. How much? The answer made her knees weak. 8 million naira. Her phone slipped from her hand. It hit the carpet silently. No. She whispered. No. Xavier picked up the phone and handed it back to her. She wasn't crying. Not yet. She simply looked. Broken. What's wrong? She tried to speak. Nothing came out. My grandmother. She collapsed. They won't begin treatment until I pay. How much? She hesitated. 8 million. Silence filled the suite. Then Xavier walked toward the window again. You love her? Linda nodded. She's all I have. You'd do anything to save her? Another nod. He looked out over the city for several long moments. When he finally turned around, his expression hadn't changed. But his next words changed Linda's life forever. I have a proposal. Linda stared at him. What kind of proposal? He reached into a drawer, pulled out a thick envelope, and placed it on the table. Inside was a marriage contract. Linda looked from the papers to the billionaire standing before her. I'm afraid I don't understand. You will. He sat down and folded his hands. For exactly 30 days. You will become my wife. Linda blinked. I'm sorry? I must have heard you wrong. You heard me perfectly. I don't even know you. You don't need to. This is business. She stared at the contract in disbelief. Why would anyone pay a stranger to pretend to be their wife? Xavier looked toward the rain-soaked skyline. For the same reason someone would accept. Because sometimes life leaves you with only impossible choices. Linda's heart pounded as she slowly reached for the contract. She hadn't read a single word. She hadn't agreed. But somehow, she already knew. Walking away from this room would be the hardest decision of her life. Linda entered Suite 2901 as an ordinary hotel receptionist. She walked toward that contract as a desperate granddaughter. What she didn't know was that the signature waiting at the bottom of those pages would awaken enemies who had been waiting for years. And by the time the 30 days were over, one of them would be fighting for their life. Linda's hands trembled as she stared at the marriage contract lying on the polished table. Just minutes ago, she had been worrying about the next hotel guest she needed to check in. Now, one of Africa's richest men was asking her to become his wife. Not forever. Just for 30 days. But sometimes, 30 days are enough to change an entire lifetime. Linda looked up at Xavier, hoping he would suddenly laugh and admit it was all a misunderstanding. Instead, he calmly folded his hands across the table. His face showed no emotion. No hesitation. It was as if asking strangers to marry him was part of his daily routine. Linda swallowed hard. Sir. I think you've mistaken me for someone else. I haven't. There are thousands of women in this city. There are. So why me? Xavier stood and slowly walked toward the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering skyline. The answer doesn't matter. It matters to me. He remained silent for several seconds. Finally he spoke. My grandmother is dying. Linda blinked. I'm sorry. Don't be. It's life. My grandmother has one wish before she leaves this world. He turned around. She wants to see me married. Linda listened quietly. I've delayed it for years. Every woman who came into my life wanted one thing. My money. So I stopped believing anyone. His voice wasn't bitter. It was simply tired. My grandmother believes I've become lonely. She's right. Linda lowered her eyes. I still don't understand why that has to involve me. Because you don't know who I am. She frowned. What? You recognized my name. Yes. But before tonight. You had never met me. She nodded. And unlike many others. You weren't trying to impress me. He looked directly into her eyes. You were trying to leave. For the first time since entering the suite, Linda realized he'd been observing everything she did. Every movement. Every expression. Every word. But why only 30 days, she asked. My grandmother is scheduled for surgery in exactly 1 month. If she survives, our agreement ends. And if she doesn't? A shadow crossed Xavier's face. Then I'll have fulfilled her final wish. Silence settled between them. Rain continued tapping gently against the windows. Linda looked at the contract again. What happens if I refuse? Xavier answered immediately. You walk away. No consequences. No threats. No pressure. You return to your normal life. Normal life. The words echoed painfully inside her. Her grandmother lying in a hospital bed. 8 million naira she didn't have. Rent due in 6 days. An empty savings account. Normal life didn't seem normal anymore. Xavier quietly placed another envelope beside the contract. If you sign, your grandmother's hospital deposit will be paid within the hour. Linda's heart skipped. She slowly opened the envelope. Inside was a bank transfer authorization. 8 million Nigerian nairas. Already signed. Already approved. She looked up. You haven't even asked if I'll accept. I don't make offers I don't intend to keep. Her eyes began to fill with tears. You would do this? For someone you just met? I'm not doing it for free. This is a contract. Nothing more. Linda suddenly pushed the papers away. I can't. Xavier looked surprised. No? My grandmother didn't raise me to marry for money. He nodded once. I respect that. He reached for the contract. I'll have someone show you out. Linda stood. She turned toward the door. One hand reached the handle. Then, her phone rang again. It was the hospital. She answered immediately. Hello? Miss Okafor? Yes. This is Dr. Mensah. We've stabilized your grandmother. But her condition is deteriorating. Linda's heart pounded. Please. We need authorization to begin treatment. If payment isn't made tonight, there's only so much we can do. The doctor's voice softened. I'm sorry. We're running out of time. The line went dead. Linda stood frozen. She could hear her own heartbeat. She remembered her father. The night the hospital refused another treatment because they couldn't pay. She remembered watching him smile weakly. It's okay, princess. We tried. 3 days later, he was gone. Her knees almost gave way. Not again. Please. Not grandma too. Without saying a word, she slowly turned around. Xavier was still standing where she'd left him. He didn't ask what the hospital had said. He already knew. She walked back to the table. Her fingers rested on the contract. I have one condition. He nodded. Name it. You treat me like a human being. His expression softened, just slightly. I already intended to. No insults. No humiliation. No acting like I'm beneath you because you're rich. He looked at her for a long moment. Agreed. And when the 30 days are over, I go back to my life. You have my word. And my grandmother never learns why I agreed. Never. She took a deep breath. Then picked up the pen. Some signatures are written with confidence. Others are written with hope. Linda's was written with heartbreak. She wasn't marrying for love. She wasn't chasing wealth. She was trying to save the last member of her family. She signed. Linda Okafor. The sound of the pen leaving the paper seemed louder than the rain outside. Xavier picked up the contract. Signed beneath her name. Then pressed a button on his phone. Within seconds, the suite door opened. A well-dressed elderly man entered. Good evening, sir. Samuel. Transfer the hospital funds. Immediately. Yes, sir. And prepare the Bentley. We're going to Riverside Medical Center. Samuel glanced briefly at Linda. As you wish. He disappeared. Linda stared. Just like that. The money is already on its way. You trust me this much? No. His answer caught her off guard. I trust contracts. For some reason. That honesty made more sense than a fake promise. 20 minutes later, a sleek black Bentley rolled quietly through the rainy streets. Linda sat in the back seat beside Xavier. Neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. It was unfamiliar. She kept looking out the window. Her thoughts were racing. 30 days. How had her life changed so quickly? You can still back out. His voice interrupted her thoughts. She looked at him. Even now? Yes. I don't force people. Linda smiled sadly. If I back out, my grandmother loses. Xavier looked away. For reasons he couldn't explain. Those words stayed with him. The hospital entrance was crowded. Doctors hurried through automatic doors. Families waited anxiously. The smell of disinfectant filled the air. Linda jumped out before the car fully stopped. Grandma. She rushed toward the reception desk. I'm Linda Okafor. The patient, Margaret Okafor. The receptionist smiled. The payment has already been confirmed. Linda froze. So quickly? The treatment has already begun. Relief washed over her. Her legs almost gave out. She leaned against the counter and quietly cried. Not loud. Not dramatically. Just silent tears of relief. Xavier watched from across the lobby. He had seen people cry before. Usually over money. Usually after losing it. But Linda? She cried because someone else had been given another chance to live. He couldn't remember the last time he'd met someone like that. Samuel stepped beside him. Sir. The agreement is complete. Xavier nodded. Good. Samuel hesitated. May I ask something? What? Why her? Xavier didn't answer immediately. He looked toward Linda. She had just thanked a nurse. Then another. Even the cleaner pushing a mop received a grateful smile. Finally, he replied quietly. I don't know. But for the first time in years. Someone looked at me without wanting anything. A few minutes later, the doctor emerged. Miss Okafor? Linda rushed over. How is she? The surgery went well. But she'll need several days of observation. Linda clasped her hands together. Thank God. The doctor smiled. Whoever paid your deposit saved her life tonight. Linda slowly turned. Xavier was already walking toward the exit. He hadn't waited for thanks. He hadn't even looked back. She hurried after him. Mr. Adeyemi. He stopped. She caught up, slightly out of breath. Thank you. He looked at her. No. She frowned. What? From tonight onward. Call me Xavier. She blinked. I don't think that's appropriate. It will be. Why? He looked toward the parking lot where photographers had suddenly gathered outside the hospital gates. Flashbulbs lit up the rainy night. They found me. Linda looked confused. Who? The media. He gave a small sigh. They're about to meet my wife. Linda's eyes widened. My what? Before she could react. Reporters rushed toward them. Mr. Adeyemi. Is it true you're getting married? Who is the woman beside you? Have you finally found love? Cameras flashed non-stop. Microphones surrounded them. Linda instinctively stepped back. Without warning, Xavier reached for her hand. His fingers gently wrapped around hers. He leaned close enough for only her to hear. Smile. She looked at him in panic. I don't know how. His lips almost curved into a smile. Neither do I. Then, he turned toward the cameras. For the first time in years, the cold billionaire who never smiled held a woman's hand in public. And by sunrise, the entire country would know her name. Linda thought signing the contract was the hardest part. She was wrong. By tomorrow morning, she wouldn't just be a hotel receptionist anymore. She would become the most talked about woman in the country. And somewhere in the shadows, someone watching the news would whisper 4 chilling words. By sunrise, Linda Okafor's life no longer belonged to her. One photograph. One moment. One hand held in front of dozens of cameras. That was all it took. While she slept for barely 3 hours beside her grandmother's hospital bed, the internet had already decided who she was. Some called her lucky. Others called her a gold digger. None of them knew the truth. The following morning, the first rays of sunlight crept through the hospital curtains. Linda had spent the entire night sitting beside her grandmother's bed. The elderly woman was finally sleeping peacefully, her breathing steady. Linda smiled. Thank you, God. For the first time in weeks, she could breathe. A nurse entered carrying a tray of medication. You should get some rest too. Linda laughed softly. I've forgotten how. The nurse smiled knowingly. You've been here all night. Linda nodded. I couldn't leave her. Before the nurse could respond, another woman rushed into the room holding a tablet. Nurse. You need to see this. She turned the screen around. Both women looked at it. Then slowly, they looked back at Linda. Across the front page of every major news website was the same photograph. Xavier Adeyemi, holding Linda's hand outside Riverside Medical Center. The headline read, Africa's most eligible billionaire finally found the woman who stole his heart. Another article claimed, secret romance revealed after months of dating. Another, who is Linda Okafor? The woman who captured Xavier Adeyemi's heart. Linda almost dropped the tablet. What? This isn't true. The nurse looked confused. But that's you. Yes. But. She couldn't explain. She had signed a confidentiality agreement. No one could know about the contract. Not even her grandmother. Her phone suddenly began vibrating. Again. And again. And again. Unknown numbers. Messages. Social media notifications. Hundreds. Thousands. Grace called first. Linda answered immediately. Grace. Linda. What have you done? What are you talking about? Turn on the television. I've seen it. You've seen it? You disappeared from work yesterday. And today you're dating Xavier Adeyemi? Linda closed her eyes. It's not what people think. Then explain. I can't. There was a long silence. Grace sighed. I don't know what's happening. But people from the hotel have been talking since 6 this morning. Linda's stomach tightened. What are they saying? That you planned this. That you targeted him. Some are saying you've been meeting him secretly for months. Linda leaned against the wall. People were creating stories, without knowing a single fact. Meanwhile, 40 floors above the city, inside Adeyemi Global Headquarters, the atmosphere was tense. Executives sat silently around a polished conference table. No one dared speak. Xavier entered. Every person stood immediately. Good morning, sir. He nodded once. Sit. The meeting had barely begun, when his assistant Samuel walked over quietly. Sir. What is it? The media situation. Xavier glanced at him. What about it? The story has gone international. Samuel placed several newspapers on the table. One headline read, Who is the future Mrs. Adeyemi? Another read, Billionaire finally chooses love over business. One executive smiled nervously. Congratulations, sir. The room fell silent. Xavier looked at him. The smile disappeared instantly. We're discussing quarterly investments. Not my personal life. Continue. Outside the boardroom, Samuel couldn't help smiling. For 12 years. He had worked for Xavier. He had never seen his employer allow gossip to exist. Usually, every false article was immediately denied. Every rumor disappeared within hours. But this time, Xavier had done nothing. Not a single denial. Not one statement. Interesting. Very interesting. Back at the hospital, Linda's grandmother slowly opened her eyes. My child. Linda rushed over. Grandma. The old woman smiled weakly. You stayed. Of course. I had the strangest dream. Linda adjusted her pillow. What dream? I dreamed you got married. Linda froze. Her heart almost stopped. Grandma laughed softly. The groom was very handsome. Linda forced a smile. Maybe dreams don't always come true. Her grandmother gently held her hand. One day, someone will love you. Not because of beauty. Not because of money. But because of your heart. Linda looked away before tears could form. If only Grandma knew. That afternoon, she finally left the hospital to collect a few clothes from her small apartment. The moment she stepped outside, people recognized her. Isn't that her? The billionaire's girlfriend. No way. It is. Within seconds, several people pulled out their phones. Taking pictures. Recording videos. Whispering. Linda hurried away. Her chest tightened. She had never liked attention. Now, she couldn't escape it. As she reached her apartment building, she noticed someone waiting by the entrance. An elegant elderly woman dressed in cream-colored traditional attire. Silver hair. Warm eyes. A walking stick carved from polished ebony. The woman smiled. You must be Linda. Linda stopped. Yes. I'm sorry. Have we met? The woman laughed gently. No. But I've heard so much about you. Linda looked confused. I'm Evelyn Adeyemi. Everything inside Linda seemed to freeze. Adeyemi. Xavier's grandmother. The very woman whose wish had created this impossible contract. Before Linda could react, Mama Evelyn opened her arms. My dear. So this is the young woman who finally made my stubborn grandson smile. Linda's mouth fell slightly open. Smile? She had never seen Xavier smile. Not once. Mama Evelyn noticed her expression and laughed. Oh yes. You don't believe me. But when he called me this morning, his voice sounded lighter than it has in years. Linda wasn't sure what to say. Oh. Mama Evelyn gently took both of Linda's hands. My child. Thank you. Linda blinked. For what? For giving an old woman hope. Those words pierced Linda's heart. Because she knew. The hope was built on a lie. A sleek black SUV quietly pulled up beside them. Samuel stepped out. Good afternoon, madam. He bowed respectfully. Then turned to Linda. Miss Okafor. Mr. Adeyemi sent me. He would like you to come with me. Linda hesitated. Now? Yes. Mama Evelyn smiled knowingly. My grandson has never liked waiting. Linda looked from Samuel to Mama Evelyn, then back again. She realized something terrifying. The contract had only begun. And already, she wasn't just pretending to be Xavier's wife. She was becoming part of his family. Linda believed pretending to love Xavier would be the hardest part. She was wrong. Because someone else had just learned about the fake marriage. Someone who had spent years believing she would become Mrs. Xavier Adeyemi. And unlike Linda, she wasn't willing to walk away. As a crystal wine glass shattered against a marble floor, a furious voice echoed through a luxurious penthouse. Find out everything about Linda Okafor. And destroy her before she destroys my future. Money can buy mansions. Money can buy power. Money can even buy silence. But there is one thing money has never been able to buy. Trust. And as Linda stepped into Xavier Adeyemi's world, she had no idea that someone inside it had already decided she didn't belong. The black SUV glided through the towering gates of Adeyemi Estate. Linda pressed her forehead lightly against the window. She had never seen anything like it. Perfectly trimmed gardens stretched as far as she could see. Elegant fountains sparkled beneath the afternoon sun, while security personnel patrolled discreetly along winding paths. In the distance stood a mansion so large it looked more like a luxury hotel than a private home. She let out a quiet breath. This can't be one person's house. Samuel smiled from the front seat. Mr. Adeyemi prefers privacy. Linda laughed nervously. I think this is beyond privacy. The SUV stopped beneath a grand entrance lined with marble columns. Uniformed staff opened the doors before she could touch the handle. Every servant stood in 2 neat rows. "Welcome home, madam." Linda looked behind her. Surely they were speaking to someone else. Samuel leaned closer. "They're speaking to you." Her stomach tightened. "I'm not used to this." "You'll have to be." Inside, the mansion was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers reflected sunlight across polished marble floors. Paintings of generations of the Adeyemi family lined the walls, each one radiating wealth and history. Linda walked slowly, afraid she might accidentally break something. A housekeeper approached with a warm smile. "My name is Beatrice, madam. If you need anything, please let me know." Linda smiled back. "Thank you, but please call me Linda." The woman's expression shifted slightly. "I'm sorry, madam. It's house policy." Linda sighed. This place had rules she didn't even know existed. "She's early." The deep voice echoed from the staircase. Linda looked up. Xavier descended calmly, dressed in a charcoal suit despite having no public appearance scheduled that day. He looked exactly as he had at the hotel. Calm. Controlled. Unreadable. "You found the house." She couldn't help smiling. It would have been difficult to miss. For a brief second, the corner of Xavier's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. But close. Samuel noticed. So did Beatrice. Neither said a word. "Come with me," Xavier said. He led her into a private study overlooking the gardens. Unlike the rest of the mansion, the room felt personal. Bookshelves covered one wall. Family photographs stood on another. Linda's eyes drifted toward one picture. A teenage Xavier stood beside Mama Evelyn, laughing with genuine joy. She stared at it. "I've never seen you look like that." He followed her gaze. "That was before my parents died." The warmth in the room seemed to disappear. "I'm sorry." "So am I." He changed the subject immediately. "There are a few rules." Linda folded her arms. "I thought you'd say that." He handed her a thin folder. "Our agreement." She opened it. "No interviews. No discussing our arrangement. No accepting gifts from strangers. No posting on social media." She looked up. "I don't even post." "Good." She continued reading. Rule 7 made her stop. "Always attend family events together." She frowned. "There are family events already?" He nodded. "My grandmother's birthday dinner." "When?" "Tomorrow night." Linda almost laughed. "Tomorrow?" "My family will be there." She looked worried. "What if they ask how we met?" "I'll answer." "What if they ask how long we've been dating?" "I'll answer." "What if they ask questions you can't answer?" For the first time, Xavier actually smiled. "Then we'll improvise." At that exact moment, across the city, inside an elegant penthouse, a woman watched the morning news with narrowed eyes. Sophia Hart. Fashion entrepreneur. Magazine cover regular. For 3 years, society pages had insisted she and Xavier would eventually marry. She had believed it herself. Until now. The television displayed Linda's smiling face beside Xavier. Sophia gripped her coffee cup so tightly it cracked. "So? That's the girl." Her assistant entered carefully. "You asked me to investigate." Sophia didn't look away from the screen. "And?" Linda Okafor. 28. Hotel receptionist. Father deceased. Cares for her grandmother. No criminal record. No wealthy relatives. Sophia smiled coldly. "So she's ordinary." The assistant hesitated. "There's one more thing." "What?" "Everyone who knows her describes her the same way." Sophia looked over. "How?" "Kind." She laughed. "Kind doesn't survive in Xavier's world." She stood and walked toward the window. "If she's pretending, I'll expose her. If she's genuine, I'll make sure Xavier never believes it." Back at the mansion, dinner was unexpectedly quiet. Only Linda and Xavier sat at the long table designed for 20. "This table is ridiculous," Linda muttered. He looked up. "What?" "There are only 2 of us." He glanced around. "I suppose." "You suppose?" "My grandmother usually complains about it." Linda smiled. "What does she say?" "She says a house this big shouldn't feel this empty." Silence settled between them. Then Linda asked softly, Were you always this serious? He paused. No. What changed? He looked down at his untouched meal. The people I trusted. Linda didn't ask another question. Some wounds? Didn't need to be reopened. Later that evening, Linda wandered onto a balcony overlooking the gardens. The city lights shimmered in the distance. She heard footsteps behind her. You should be asleep. She turned. Xavier stood holding 2 mugs. He handed her one. Tea. She accepted it. Thank you. They stood side by side in comfortable silence. Finally, Linda spoke. Can I ask you something? You usually do. If this marriage is fake, why does it feel like you're trying so hard to protect me? His eyes remained fixed on the skyline. Because people will come after you. She frowned. Because of the money? No. Because of me. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. Samuel's name flashed across the screen. Xavier answered. Yes? Samuel's normally calm voice sounded urgent. Sir. You were right. We intercepted the photographs. Xavier's expression hardened instantly. How many? Over 200. They've been following Miss Okafor since she left the hospital. Linda's heart skipped. Following her? Samuel continued. And there's something else. We identified who hired them. Xavier's jaw tightened. Who? There was a brief silence. Then Samuel answered. Sophia Hart. Xavier closed his eyes for a moment. I'll handle it. He ended the call. Linda looked at him anxiously. Who's Sophia? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stared into the darkness beyond the estate walls. Finally, he spoke. The woman who believes she should have been standing where you are. A cold breeze swept across the balcony. Linda suddenly understood. The hardest part of the contract wouldn't be pretending to love Xavier. It would be surviving the people who hated her for it. Some enemies announce themselves. Others smile while sharpening the knife. As Linda prepared for her first dinner with the Adeyemi family, Sophia was already planning to turn that dinner into a public humiliation. But neither woman knew that the greatest secret wasn't the fake marriage. It was hidden inside a sealed envelope, locked away in Xavier's private safe. An envelope containing a name, a date, and a truth that would connect Linda's past to the Adeyemi family forever. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story and would love to see part 2, comment part 2 in the comments section below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you'll be the first to know when the next episode drops.